In the village of Amanda, there lived a woman named Chidimma, a cook so gifted that people whispered she had the hands of the gods. Her soups were richer than a king's feast, her stews smelled like heaven, and her roasted meat melted on the tongue. No one could cook like her. No one even came close. At every festival, at every wedding, at every chieftain's gathering, Chidimma's food was the first to be served and the last to be forgotten. People traveled from neighboring villages just to have a taste of her cooking, and with every bite, their praises grew louder. "Chidimma, what is your secret?" they would ask, and she would only smile, her eyes dark and unreadable. But as the years passed, a strange thing began to happen. People started disappearing. At first, it was travelers, those who came to Amanda but never left. Then it was strangers with no family ties. The villagers shook their heads and muttered superstitions, saying perhaps the spirits had called them away. Then it became them. A young woman, a farmer's son, a hunter, each vanishing without a trace. Some were last seen at the marketplace, others at the river. But the strangest part? The disappearances seemed to happen after feasts and celebrations, when Chidimma's food had been served. Still, no one dared to connect the two. Until the night Okechi, the son of Adanma, went missing. The night of the truth. Okechi was just 10 years old, a bright, curious boy, full of laughter and life. The night before he vanished, he had been seen running toward carrying a small clay pot. "Mama, I'll fetch water for her, then she'll give me stew." That was the last time anyone saw him. The next morning, Adanma woke up to an empty sleeping mat. She searched the village, calling his name, knocking on doors, but no one had seen him. Panic spread like wildfire. The village gathered in the square, murmuring. Some suggested he had wandered off and gotten lost in the forest. Others feared something worse. Then an elder spoke. "Adanma, think hard. Where was he last seen?" And the answer sent a chill through the crowd. Chidimma's hut. A dangerous discovery. That night, when the moon hung high and the crickets sang their eerie songs, 3 of the bravest men, Ez, Dyke, and Obinna, crept toward Chidimma's compound. The village was silent, as if it, too, was holding its breath. From behind the bamboo fence, the men peered into her kitchen hut, a place no one but Chidimma ever entered. The fire still burned. The air was thick with the scent of pepper, onions, and something strange. They pushed the door open, and what they saw would haunt them forever. In the dim glow of the fire, bones lay scattered on the floor, picked clean, white as ivory. Skulls, too small to be those of animals, sat stacked in the corner, and in the large bubbling pot, floating among the herbs and spices, was a human hand. The men recoiled in horror. Ezzy's voice was barely a whisper. "The missing villagers, she's been feeding them to us." Dyke, whose hands were trembling, reached into the pile of bones, his stomach churning. He lifted a small, curved fragment, the rib bone of a child. And then from the shadows, a voice spoke. "You weren't supposed to find out." They spun around. Chidimma stood in the doorway, her face calm, her expression unreadable. "I did what I had to," she said, her voice as smooth as the oil she cooked with. "The spirits asked for sacrifices, and in return, I became the best cook. You all loved my food." A long silence. Then, Obinna lunged. Chidimma let out a piercing shriek, darting for the back exit, but the men were faster. They grabbed her, forcing her to the ground. She struggled like a wild animal, her nails clawing at their skin, her teeth snapping dangerously close to Eze's arm. But the villagers were already gathering, torches in hand. They dragged Chidimma to the village square, where the elders waited. The people gasped and cried when they heard the truth, some vomiting at the thought of what they had eaten over the years. And then the judgment came. The curse of the forest. The elders did not sentence Chidimma to death. No, that would be too kind. Instead, they banished her to the dark forest, where the restless spirits roamed. She screamed, she begged, she wailed, but no one showed her mercy. They tied her hands, pushed her past the village gates, and watched as the shadows swallowed her whole. No one ever saw her again. But the villagers swore they could still hear her voice, whispering in the wind, calling them to her empty hut. "Come, taste my stew, just one more time." From that day forward, no one in Amanda ever praised a cook too much, because who knew what their secret ingredient might be?